Hello and welcome back to the Guitars and Repair, and today we're checking out a pretty cool guitar. This is a 2024 Gibson Custom Shop made to measure 1959 reissue in green tiger gloss. I've been waiting for this guitar for a while, so let's check it out. And here's the box it came in. So they're calling it a green tiger gloss. You can see it's a 59 standard reissue. If you're not familiar with the made to measure program, so the Gibson Custom Shop has a specific program where you can custom order certain guitars in different finishes and configurations and different colors and that kind of a thing. They're expensive, so depending on how crazy you want to go, you can get something custom ordered for around $6,500 US, all the way up to like $15,000 US. This one, in this configuration, green is kind of considered a premium finish because it's not common or historically accurate. So it's a little bit less of a common finish. It costs a little bit more to get something like this made. From what I can tell on the internet, it would have cost about between $8,500 to $9,500 US to get this made. So about, you know, $11,500 to closer to $13,000, which is a crazy amount. This guitar in particular ended up at a Canadian dealer. So what happens sometimes in the made to measure program is if the deal falls through, the financing doesn't complete, or someone changes their mind or something like that, then these made to measure guitars can be sold to dealers. So that's what happened in this case. So I have a friend who works at Long McQuaid. He let me know about this guitar when it came in, and I went and checked it out right away, and I thought it was gorgeous, so I put it on layaway, and then, you know, I saved up and sold a bunch of guitars, traded in some stuff, and then it ended up coming home with me. And what's cool about these made to measures that end up at dealers is you can usually get them for better prices because they're just trying to, you know, get rid of the guitar. The original owner that specifically picked out these specs doesn't want it, so it's harder to sell to someone else who didn't specifically order it themselves, so they sell it to dealers at a bit of a discount. So I got quite a nice deal on this guitar. I'm quite happy with it, and it is gorgeous. The top is crazy. I really enjoy the color. It's just got so much flame. It's pretty stunning looking. It's got a nice dark fingerboard, and yeah, it's got the same specs as an R9. Just a couple things changed. So the only thing changed on this guitar from like their standard R9s is this one has a gloss finish. So typically R9s will have the VOS finish, which is a little bit more, it's meant to be looked more aged. It's a little more cloudy and broken in. It's meant to look like an aged guitar. And the gloss is more what like you would see on a Gibson USA model. They're just super shiny and look brand new. But I really like that look on this guitar. I think it looks great, and I'm just going to naturally age it over the years. So the finish is a gloss finish rather than a VOS finish, and also the, you know, the color. So this is not a historic color. This is a special color. And sometimes I'll do these in limited runs, or if they're available. The color changes always change at the made to measure program too. So sometimes you can get a color that's available for a certain amount of time and it's not available again if you try to order the same thing again. If you look for R9s on the internet and type in green R9, not a lot come up. So this is a pretty rare finish. Another thing that makes this car a little different, this one's got the 5A maple top, so just like super premium top on this guitar. And this one has a special neck profile, so you can actually custom order your neck profile with these guitars too. So this one has the V1 Carmelita, so that's actually a specific Les Paul neck profile from a 59 burst that they use as an option that you can pick. And I find that the neck is just like slightly chunky. It's not as big as my R8 by any means, because my R8 is huge, like a big baseball bat. This one is thick without being like super chunky. So it's actually a really nice feeling neck. I like it, even though I prefer larger necks. Like I really like my R8. This one fits somewhere in the middle between the two, and it's still really comfortable. And if you're not familiar with the new custom shop models, like the historic reissues, the R8, the 1958 reissue, the 1959, 57, these are known to be like the closest thing that the Gibson custom shop has ever put out to being, you know, the closest reproduction to the old ones. Over the years, they've made changes and changes to make them closer and closer. And the most recent ones are the closest they've ever been. They're using plans from like scanned original bursts. Like people are bringing in their 1959 original guitars and they're scanning them and then making clones of them with the scans. They're also using hide glue like the older models used to. They're using chemically made plastics that represent the originals. They're using original like aniline dyes like that. They're really making as close reproductions as they can to the super sought after originals. So whether all that stuff equals a better guitar, like a better sound, better playing guitar, I'm not going to debate that because I have no idea. I'm sure you could make a modern guitar that sounds just as good as the old ones, but there are people who want a 1959 reissue and they could never afford it. They're getting upwards, like they're getting ridiculous, between like $350,000 to $1 million, depending on which one you're looking at. So that's out of the realm of possibility for most people. So these are the closest things you can get without, you know, using house money to buy a guitar. And don't get me wrong, these things are still crazy expensive. I probably would have never gotten this, but I happen to have a few guitars that I could trade in and sell, and I've always wanted an R9. I have a 58. I bought that because that was on sale, pretty good sale for sure, and I couldn't afford an R9. So I was kind of in a fortunate enough situation where I could afford this at the time. And Long & McQuade has a Gibson month special thing going on in Canada where you can actually finance a guitar for 3 years rather than 1 year. And they also had a discount on certain models of Gibson guitars. So there's a couple things that allowed me to get this guitar. It was the promotion, the 3 years financing. I had guitar that I could trade in. I sold a bunch to sell some of it. And I actually got a pretty decent discount on this guitar because it was Gibson month. And there's actually a flaw on this guitar, a couple little flaw areas that lowered the price even further. So that's why I could afford this guitar. I don't think I would be able to otherwise because it's a very expensive guitar. That being said though, I think I got a really good deal on it because if I was to make this guitar myself, I'd be paying a lot more money than what I did. So I got lucky that this one never got picked up from the made to measure program and sold at a discount to a dealer. And then I got a further discount because it was Gibson month, and then a further discount because there was an issue with the guitar, a small cosmetic thing that lowered the price even further. And then I was able to trade in and finance a small bit on it too. So yeah, it was basically like getting a car. But anyways, it definitely is a fine looking guitar. That green is just gorgeous and the flame is crazy. So this one has the custom buckers. And again, it's an R9, so it has all the specs of like a scanned 1959 Gibson. And they use really nice lightweight woods for these two. They're not weight relieved. I think this one is just over 8.5 pounds, which is just about perfect for a Les Paul for me. I don't like them when they're too heavy. They tend to hurt my back. And if you're interested in like the individual specs for these new R9s, here's a list quickly on the side of the screen, but you can look them up. Basically, they've been making them the same since about 2019, I believe, and they're just very historically accurate, the closest they've ever come. And here's another thing I really like about this guitar, is the back. So they actually stain the back green as well, so the whole guitar is green, and it's got that really nice gloss. It's got really nice ribbon mahogany in the back. This is a one-piece body. And then we've got our Gibson custom shop medallion there. And yeah, just a really nice looking piece of wood in the back. And yeah, one piece neck. Again, this profile isn't huge. It's actually a really nice comfortable neck. It's somewhere between like a 50s profile neck on like a USA standard, and then but a little bit bigger, getting closer to the like R8 territory. So somewhere in the middle, but it feels great. And then we've got our vintage Gibson style tuners, and then the serial number, which is R9. 4 represents the year, so 2024, and then the production number. So again, this is just like an R9. The only differences are the gloss finish, the green, and the neck profile, which is a custom kind of neck profile you can order for this. Comes in this nice era correct reproduction case too, with the pink interior. It's got a nice padding pad for the headstock, and these cases are really heavy. That's the only thing I don't like about them. Very heavy cases, but they are quite nice. Then in the case we've got all the papers and stuff. We got our certificate of authenticity and all these kind of things that would have came with the original 1959 standards. They're kind of cool. Case keys. We've got hang tags. Warranty thing with the model. And more tags. And then it comes with just a plastic switch tip cavity cover in case you don't want the medallion. And then you can see here, this is a Costa Rica made case. And they're very nice, but they're very heavy. So yeah, I'm quite happy with this guitar so far. It looks amazing. And I played it extensively before I bought it. That's something I didn't do with my R8. The R8, I just kind of brought it home and tried it out there. And then I ended up having to put different strings on the R8. I kept having trouble with the setup, but finally I dialed it in the way I like it. Now I really love my R8. And there it is up on my wall. I always have it ready to go. I play it a lot. I really like the plain top on this one, but I wanted something a little crazier, so that's what the R9 is. One thing I don't like about the R8 is it's got really narrow frets, which is historically accurate, but when I'm using 9 strings on there, it feels really weird. Like the frets are way too narrow, so I actually had to put 10 gauge on my R8 to make it feel right. And I've got it dialed in now. It's killer. It plays great. Love the guitar. It is nice to have something a little different with a bit bigger frets, so I'm excited about my R9. But anyway, yeah, let's go ahead and get it on the bench and get some specs. Almost forgot, Long & McQuade also gave a little swag pack for Gibson month. If you bought a Gibson during Gibson month, any Gibson, you would get a free hat and a t-shirt. The t-shirt has like 4 Les Pauls on it. And then you also got, I also got a $10 off rental coupon. So yeah, nice little pack there. Oh, weighing in at just over 8.5 pounds. So 8 pounds, 10 ounces, or 3.92 kilograms. All right, let's get a pickup reading here. So these are the Alnico 3 custom buckers, unpotted. These are what Gibson are putting in their historic reissues right now. They're great pickups. You can actually buy them from Gibson, just the pickups. They're pretty pricey though. But in the bridge position, we're getting a 7.92. In the neck position, a 7.87. And in the middle, a 3.95. And I mentioned that I got this guitar at a decent discount due to like a cosmetic issue. So this guitar was shipped in the winter to Edmonton, Long & McQuade. And it was a really, really cold week. Like it was like minus 40-ish. And when it came into the store and acclimated, there was actually some checking that happened, some gloss cracks. So I'll see if I can catch what I mean on camera here. They're kind of hard to see unless you're very close. But you can see that little crack there by the poker chip. And there's a couple other spots on the guitar where it's happened. I think on the headstock you can kind of see it. But again, this is like, you got to be really close and in the light to see it. In certain lighting conditions you can see it better than others, but if you look, it's so hard to catch on camera. If you look right there on the headstock, there's a little finish check there. And there's another one further down on the neck. Again, you got to be really close. You can't even feel it with your fingernail if you're rubbing the finish. It's just like a check mark. But anyway, I got a significant discount on the price because of that. And it really doesn't bother me. You really have to be super up close in your face to even see it. And here's a look at the tailpiece. It's super lightweight. And you can see the casting mark down the middle there. But yeah, ultra lightweight tailpiece there. And then here's a look at the ABR1 bridge. And it does have the no wire retainer, so you got to be careful that the saddles don't fall out when you're handling it. And then it's mounted to the body. Historically, you've got those skinny posts that drill right into the body. There's no like receiver system, and that's how the old ones used to be. And they do have special plastics on these R9s that are like vintage originals, so they're calling this binding Royalite. They call the inlays cellulose nitrate, and the mounting rings are M69 cellulose acetate butyrate. The pickguard is cellulose acetate butyrate. So again, just special plastics that they manufactured to use on these models. Let's have a look at the pickups. So actually that pickup is in there really tight. There's not a lot of lead given there, so we can kind of sneak a peek there. Oh, it's coming out a little bit now that I pulled on it a little bit. But yeah, you've got your custom buckers with the patent applied for sticker on the back with the gold screws. And then here's a look at the route, which is super clean, very clean, no fluffies at all. A very nice clean route. And then you can see our thick maple top there. And then we'll have a look at our neck pickup. This one has a little bit more lead length. And again, there we are. So just the patent applied for with the gold screws. That's the custom buckers. And then I just want to set it down somewhere where it's not gonna scratch. So here's a look at the neck pickup cavity. We can see our long neck tenon there, and again a nice super clean route. Got a tiny bit of buffing compound in there, and no factory writings, but nice clean route. The pickguard, which is apparently that special plastic, looks just normal to me. But yeah. And then here's a look at the top without the pickguard. I mean, it looks great. This is definitely a candidate for not having a pickguard for sure. You just got to deal with that little screw hole there. I wish these crazy top ones shipped with the pickguard, but you had the option to install it if you wanted to, because this looks great without it. And we've got a nice dark piece of rosewood for this. It's a little chalky. It actually needs a little bit of moisture, I think. I'm going to put some lemon oil in there and darken it up and hydrate it a little bit. But the fretwork is done perfectly. I checked it with a fret rocker. No high spots at all. Super well done. They're nice and shiny too. And there's no tooling marks that I can see. Sometimes on Gibson USA you see lots of tooling marks around the frets. This one's really clean. And even my R8 had a couple. But this one looks very nice. So yeah, that looks great. And then the truss rod cover, it's got this wider band around the side, like the old ones used to have. And then our truss rod looks good. There's no thread showing at all. Very nice. And these ones actually come with a nylon nut, which is actually historically accurate. So that's kind of a neat feature on these not many people know about. Alright, and a little bit of lemon oil darkened that right up. So yeah, I use the Dunlop 65. I think I've had this bottle for years. There's enough in it for like thousands of guitars. So one bottle should last you, like, no lie, probably like 5 to 10 years. And here's a look at the control cavity. So yeah, it's all hand wired. It's got Gibson branded pots in there. It's 50s style wiring. It's using the big Bumblebee capacitors. And everything looks nice and clean. And it's got an R9 stamp there in the top left corner, you can see there. And on the top and the bottom of the cavity, you see they routed all the way down to the cap. So you can see the super flamey maple top on the bottom there. And it's a nice clean route. And here's the Gibson custom medallion. And it's pretty lightweight. I think they were thicker before. They seem to have like made these quite a bit thinner. There's the Logos brand at the back. And these medallions go for like ridiculous amounts of money online. I think you can get like upwards to like $300 for them, which is crazy. I feel like you could just go to Logos and get one made yourself for a lot less. But anyway, yeah, this one feels nice and lightweight. And here's a look at the switch cavity, which is, yeah, using cloth wiring, and the route looks nice and clean. And again, you can see our exposed maple cap at the bottom. Here's a quick look at the back. Again, I really like that green finish over top of the mahogany. It looks great. You don't see it very often either. And this is a nice one piece of mahogany with some nice ribbons in there. It looks really nice. And yeah, I couldn't find any QC issues with this guitar at all. Like the frets are great. There's no issues with any binding bleed. My R9 has a little bit of binding bleed from the aniline red dye, but I guess that's pretty common. And yeah, there's no weirdness going on. There's hardly any tooling marks on the fingerboard. All the binding's really well done. The neck feels nice and rolled. The QC is there on this one. I really went through it a lot in the shop and looked at like every little part of it just to make sure it was perfect before I bought it. The only issues are there was a slight checking marks in a few spots. So yeah, pretty happy with the QC on this one. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and string it up, and it came perfectly set up, so I'm just gonna leave it that way so we can check the setup, take some neck measurements, and then we'll go ahead, plug it in, and see how it sounds. And I was just curious how much the case weighs. So yes, it weighs 11 pounds, 10 ounces, so 3 pounds more than the guitar. And the guitar really did come perfectly set up. I didn't have to do anything to it. I didn't have to adjust the truss rod. I didn't have to adjust the height. It was just the way I like it. So your results may vary, but I think they do pay quite a bit of attention to the setup on these models. So using my notch straight edge, you can see that there's just a little bit of relief in the neck. If you look closely, there's just a little bit of a line between the straight edge and the fingerboard, so that tells me that the neck does not have a lot of relief in it. That's typically how I set my necks. And then here in the 3rd fret area, you can see when I use the 3rd fret that the string is resting right on that 1st fret. So that tells me there's not a lot of relief in the neck, and we've got a really well cut nut here. Again, that nut is nylon, which is historically accurate. And then here at the 12th fret, we can see that the low E is sitting at just a hair above 1 millimeter, and the low E is right at 1 millimeter. So yeah, very nice low action. All right, let's get some neck specs. So this guitar has the V1 Carmelita neck. So what that means is you can get this in the Gibson made to measure specs. It's an actual, they scanned a 1959 burst named Carmelita that actually Joe Matavasa used to own for a little bit. And they made an exact copy of that neck because everybody just raved about that neck. So that is what's on this guitar. So let's just get some specs on what that looks like here. So width at the nut is a 1.676 inches or 42.58 millimeters. At the 12th fret, that is a 2.05 inches or a 52.31 millimeters. Width at the 1st fret is a 0.91 inches or a 23.16 millimeters. And at the 12th fret, that is a 0.99 inches or a 25.29 millimeters. And here's a look at the neck profile. So yeah, it's just a super rounded C, and then it does flatten out a little bit by the 12th fret. But yeah, this is the Carmelita neck profile. The neck does feel great. It's chunky without being too much, and it just feels extremely comfortable. It does sit nicely on a strap, not neck divey at all. Stays right where it should. And I'm just going to quickly go through all the frets to make sure there's no buzzing or fretting out anywhere. I'm very sure there isn't because I've done this, but I'll just document it on the film here. I like to speed up this part, but if you want to see it in real time, just slow down your player to 25%. So yeah, very nice low action, no fretting or buzzing out anywhere. Honestly, I could go lower because there's not even a hint of buzz or fretting out, but this is right where I like my action. And the guitar is super resonant and it really rings out for a long time, and it really vibrates well too. Still going. Yeah, and you can feel it vibrating in every part of the guitar. The headstock, the body, about the output jack, everywhere. Feels very nice and resonant with lots of sustain. So yeah, it came perfectly set up out of the box, and it's intonated perfectly as well. All right, it's time. Let's go ahead and plug this thing in and see how it sounds. All right, we're switching things up a little bit today. I'm going to plug into my new JCM 2000 DSL 150. It's a really good Marshall tube amp, and I'm going to mic up my 412 cab, my Agnator cab, with an SM57, and then I'm going to be using an AT 2020 condenser mic for the room. We're just going to go ahead and try it with clean, and then with a little bit of dirt. Alright, it sounds really great clean, super clear and articulate, and the neck pickup is not muddy at all. The bridge pickup is not too shrill. It's a really, really nice balanced tone. Very nice. Alright, I'm going to try it with a little bit of dirt. Alright, final thoughts on this 2024 Gibson Custom Shop Made to Measure 1959 reissue in green tiger gloss. This is probably the most expensive guitar I have ever played. And you definitely don't need an expensive guitar to sound good, especially in this day and age. You can get fantastic guitars for like $200. Actually, one of my most played guitars right now is a guitar I got for $70 at a retail outlet store. That was like a cheap Amazon brand, but it was fantastic. So I really don't think there's a big correlation between how much you spend on a guitar and how good it is. I think who these guitars are for people who want a 59 burst. That's kind of the holy grail of guitar, and you can't get them anymore, and they're ridiculous money. They're like $350,000 to $1 million, and there's no way you're ever going to be able to afford something like that. So this is for those people who want a burst, a 59, like a real old school vintage guitar, something that's made as close as possible, but for a lot less money. Now don't get me wrong, 10 grand for guitar is still a crazy amount of money, but it's not 350,000. And I think where a lot of the money comes from in these guitars is just the work put in to recreate those guitars. They're using, you know, super high quality woods that are very similar to the ones they used to use. They use only top grade woods for this. So like this is a super lightweight piece of mahogany. It's one piece and it's still like 8.5 pounds. They use crazy woods for the tops, and they meticulously recreate these. They use scans of the originals. They're using like hide glue. They're recreating plastics to be like the originals. Just everything that goes into these is a lot. And these are handmade in the USA. I mean, you got to pay the workers, you got to pay R&D, you got to pay for the brand for sure. And these are very, very expensive guitars, but as close as they've ever gotten to the originals, and the originals are unobtainable. So I can kind of see where the price comes from. Now that being said, you can probably find a local luthier to make you, you know, a very close spec guitar for maybe half this price. But these guitars also tend to hold their value really, really well. So with Gibsons, more than likely you can pay what you paid brand new for a Gibson, hold on to it for 5 years, and then pay and sell it for what you paid for it. So essentially you got to play the guitar for free for 5 years. So Gibsons really do hold their value well. And is this better than a Gibson USA guitar? No, I mean, it's got different materials that make it closer to a burst, but it doesn't make it a better guitar. Gibson USA guitars are awesome too, and you can find them just as good as quality as this. I think what it comes down to is they put more attention and detail into these ones, so there's more likely you're going to get one that's, you know, perfectly set up and intonated and plays and sounds great, whether, you know, you spend a little bit less time on the Gibson USA stuff because they can't. It's factory made, it's a little bit faster production, that kind of a thing. And that being said, I mean, it's a guitar. There's going to be ones that are better than others, regardless of how much you spend on it. You could get 2 custom shop guitars and one will play and sound way better than the other one. Just it's down to luck of the draw, the different types of wood, that specific piece of wood, that kind of a thing. I do think this guitar is worth it, but only for the very specific person. You can get 99% of the way there with another guitar that's going to be a lot cheaper. But that being said, this guitar does play and sound amazing. I didn't have to do anything to it right out of the box. It was perfectly set up. The frets were perfect. The intonation was perfect. I love the way it sounds. It's a really great weight. There's no neck dive, and I couldn't find a flaw on it anywhere, except for a couple gloss cracks that actually came from the store that way, and I did get a really good discount on it. And it's just nice to have something, you know, this cool and kind of rare and fancy. You know, you only live once, and you know, I paid a pretty decent price for this thing, all things considered, and I traded in guitars and saved up, so I'm proud to have it for sure. The neck feels really great. I think they recreate this neck for a reason, because it's super nice. It just fits your hand perfectly. Even though I kind of like a little bit chunkier necks, this neck is still plenty chunky. Something about the profile just feels magical. But that's going to be it for today. Thank you for tuning into Beckler Guitars and Repair. Thanks for sticking with me through the whole video. And yeah, I definitely recommend custom shop guitars from Gibson, especially in today's day and age. They're as close as they've ever been to making, you know, vintage correct style reissues, and the two that I've gotten have been really, really great. You only live once. Thanks again, and I'll have more for you really soon.